Brad Keselowski may be preparing for one of the biggest power moves in NASCAR's modern charter era. And if the rumors are true, one Cup team could completely disappear because of it. Right now, there's growing speculation across the garage that Hayak Motorsports may shut down after the 2026 season. And if that happens, the fallout could hit multiple drivers, multiple teams, and possibly reshape the future of RFK Racing. Because this is no longer just about one struggling organization. This is about NASCAR's charter system becoming so expensive that smaller teams may not survive the pressure anymore. And suddenly, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Kyle Busch, and Brad Keselowski are all connected to the same conversation. Here's the situation. Industry rumors coming from the Rubbin' Racing podcast suggest Hayak Motorsports, the current team for Ricky Stenhouse Jr., could be nearing the end of its Cup Series operation. The team has struggled competitively, financially, and commercially. Minimal sponsorship momentum, limited top 10 results, and almost no indication they can scale upward in the current NASCAR economy. Matters because charters have become the most valuable asset in the sport. Ever since the legal battle involving Michael Jordan and the charter dispute with NASCAR, team valuations have skyrocketed. A few years ago, buying into NASCAR was difficult. Now it's borderline corporate warfare. Brad Keselowski himself recently acknowledged that securing a charter for RFK Racing's future expansion could cost anywhere between $40 and $80 million. That number changes everything. Because if Hayak folds, RFK Racing suddenly has a shortcut. Instead of building from scratch or entering a bidding war, Keselowski could potentially acquire an existing charter and expand RFK much faster than expected. Strategically, it makes perfect sense. RFK Racing has quietly rebuilt itself into one of the stronger organizations in the garage over the last few seasons. Their engineering has improved, their competitiveness has improved, and their long-term goals clearly involve becoming a larger multi-car operation again. But growth in modern NASCAR is tied directly to charters. No charter means no guaranteed entry, no guaranteed revenue, and no long-term stability. So if a smaller team becomes vulnerable, organizations like RFK immediately pay attention. And that's where this gets uncomfortable for Ricky Stenhouse Jr., because if Hayak disappears, his future becomes completely uncertain overnight. Stenhouse is still a Daytona 500 champion. He still brings veteran experience. He can still win super speedway races, but the NASCAR market has changed dramatically around him. Teams now prioritize long-term upside, sponsorship flexibility, and development potential almost as much as raw driving ability. That makes Stenhouse a difficult evaluation for top organizations. According to garage speculation, one possible landing spot could involve replacing Michael McDowell if retirement discussions ever become serious, but there's another rumor creating even bigger headlines: Childress Racing, and that immediately brings Kyle Busch into focus. Because for the first time in years, people inside NASCAR are openly questioning whether Busch still fits the future direction of a top-tier organization. That would have sounded impossible not long ago. Kyle Busch was once the standard. Two-time Cup Series champion, one of the most feared drivers in the garage, a weekly threat regardless of track type. But over the last 3 seasons, the results have become harder to defend. The wins slowed down, the frustration increased, and the radio communication has become increasingly tense. The recent Texas race only amplified those concerns. Busch showed flashes of competitiveness during the event, but the aggressive incident involving John Hunter Nemechek late in the race created another wave of criticism. Then came the radio exchanges with his own team, and now the conversation inside NASCAR is becoming unavoidable. Is Kyle Busch still helping Childress Racing, or is the relationship beginning to wear down both sides? That's a massive question for the sport, because Busch still carries enormous value from a branding perspective. Even during difficult seasons, he remains one of NASCAR's most recognizable personalities. Fans react to him, media covers him constantly, sponsors understand his name still matters. In fact, Dale Earnhardt Jr. recently argued that Busch's star power remains one of RCR's biggest assets. And honestly, that argument is fair, because replacing Kyle Busch is not simple. You are not just replacing statistics. You are replacing attention, relevance, television visibility. That carries real business consequences, but the counter-argument is becoming louder every month. Some analysts now believe RCR needs a younger, more stable driver capable of building long-term chemistry with the organization. And if that thinking grows internally, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. suddenly becomes part of the conversation, whether fans like it or not. Would Stenhouse be an upgrade over Pete Kyle Busch? Absolutely not. But NASCAR decisions are rarely based only on peak performance anymore. Teams evaluate sponsorship relationships, internal chemistry, cost efficiency, long-term sustainability. That's why this rumor matters far beyond one driver. This is really about the modern NASCAR business model. Smaller teams are struggling to survive financially, while larger organizations continue consolidating power through charters and expansion opportunities. And the scary part for independent teams is this may only be the beginning. If charter prices continue approaching $100 million, smaller organizations could slowly disappear from the grid entirely. That creates a dangerous imbalance for the future of the sport. Best case scenario, RFK Racing successfully expands, Stenhouse lands competitively somewhere else, and NASCAR's charter market stabilizes enough to keep multiple organizations alive. Worst case scenario, more small teams shut down, veteran drivers lose seats, and the Cup Series becomes increasingly controlled by a handful of powerful organizations with massive financial backing. And if that happens, the garage could look very different within the next few years. Now the biggest question becomes, is Brad Keselowski making a smart long-term business move for RFK Racing? Or are NASCAR's exploding charter prices quietly pushing smaller teams toward extinction? And what happens to Kyle Busch if Richard Childress Racing finally decides it's time for a reset? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And for more NASCAR analysis, garage rumors, and behind-the-scenes breakdowns from across the racing world, subscribe to SportsWire USA.